Former Vice President Mike Pence was the only man in the country on January 6th who could certify the 2020 election. He talked about that day and a whole lot more than 5 hours in front of the grand jury investigating Trump's role in the effort to stop that certification. Now he could be called to testify against his former boss and his former president. Pence is also running against Trump for the presidency in a crowded field. Each candidate must find a way to break through. And much of that could come from stark policy differences many of them are offering when it comes to the economy, the border, or most importantly, geopolitical affairs. Joining me now to talk about all of that is the former Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. So glad to have you. First off,
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Your reaction to the news today from former President Trump that he's been notified that he is a target in the special prosecutor's investigation?
Well, I lived through that day on January 6th, and I've spoken and written extensively about it. And as you recounted, after we made the proper protections for my constitutional prerogatives as president of the Senate, I was called upon to testify, and did so in a way consistent with the story that I've told the American people. Look, President Trump's words that day were reckless. I had no right to overturn the election. President Trump was wrong then. He's wrong now, and I believe that history will hold him to account for his actions that day. But with regard to the prospect of an indictment, I hope it doesn't come to that. I'm not convinced that the president acting on the bad advice of a group of crank lawyers that came into the White House in the days before January 6th is actually criminal. And secondly, the truth is that the Department of Justice has lost the confidence of the American people. And there's so many Americans that are deeply concerned about unequal treatment under the law when it comes to standards, not only for the former president, but for other Republicans and other conservatives in the country. So I don't know what the letter today means, the notification means, but my hope is that the judgment about the president's actions on January 6th would be left to the American people. We have an election contest coming up. We're all involved in a primary. I trust the American people to judge that day and judge those events accordingly.
You have said publicly that because Trump put himself above the Constitution, you have said he should not be president. I'd like to pin you down on this. What are you going to do if he wins the nomination? Will you support his bid for re-election? Will you campaign for him?
Well, I wanted the American people to know when I announced for president that that President Trump asked me to put him above my oath to the Constitution. And look, whether you're a president, a vice president, whether you're a member of our armed forces, law enforcement, we all take the same oath, and that's to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I chose the Constitution that day, and I wanted the American people to know that I always will. But
would you campaign for Trump or support Trump if he wins the nomination?
Well, it's a fair hypothetical, but I'm running because I believe that we can win the Republican nomination. And I think different times call for different leadership. We'll be in New Hampshire the rest of this week. Karen and I spent the entire week of the 4th of July in Iowa. We're getting a tremendous response in those early states and around the country. And I have every confidence that Republican primary voters are going to choose a new standard bearer for our party. We're going to work our hearts out to bring our brand of conservative leadership into that contest and fight for the opportunity for it to be us.
So you're saying you would not campaign for former President Trump if he wins the nomination?
Well, what I'm telling you is that I'm confident Republican primary voters are going to choose the right standard bearer for our party. We're working every day to earn that right.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.